The open road stretched out before them, an endless ribbon of asphalt disappearing into the horizon. Sarah, John, and Emily had embarked on a road trip along the historic Route 66, seeking adventure and escape from their mundane lives. Little did they know that this journey would lead them down a path of terror they could never have imagined. Their journey began in Chicago, the birthplace of Route 66. With a trusty map and a playlist of classic rock songs, they set off in their vintage camper van, excited about the adventures that awaited them. The first leg of the trip took them through picturesque small towns and vast stretches of open highway, but as they ventured deeper into the heart of America, the landscape grew desolate, and a sense of isolation settled in. On the third day of their journey, they found themselves in a remote part of Oklahoma, surrounded by endless fields of swaying cornstalks. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the road. It was then that they saw it, a lone hitchhiker standing by the side of the highway. Emily, always the compassionate one, insisted they stop and offer the stranger a ride. The hitchhiker, a young woman with disheveled hair and a vacant stare, climbed into the back of the van without a word. Sarah and John exchanged uneasy glances, but they continued down the road. As they drove, the hitchhiker sat in eerie silence, her eyes fixed on something only she could see. It wasn't long before they realized they had lost their way. The familiar landmarks disappeared, and the road seemed to stretch endlessly in all directions. Panic set in as they realized they were lost in the heart of the Oklahoma wilderness. The hitchhiker finally spoke, her voice soft and distant. She told them of a nearby ghost town called Crimson Hollow, a place that was not on any map. She claimed to have once lived there, but had left in search of a way out, only to find herself trapped in an endless loop on the desolate highway. Desperate to escape the eerie hitchhiker and her tales of the ghost town, Sarah, John, and Emily followed her directions, hoping to find their way back to civilization. What they found, however, was far from what they had expected. Crimson Hollow was like no place they had ever seen. The town was frozen in time, its buildings crumbling, and its streets empty. The only sound was the wind rustling through the decaying structures. The hitchhiker led them to an old, dilapidated motel, insisting they stay the night. Inside the motel, the air was heavy with a sense of foreboding. The wallpaper peeled from the walls, and the furniture lay covered in dust. It was clear that no one had stayed there in years. Emily suggested they leave immediately, but the hitchhiker pleaded with them to stay, claiming that it was the only way to break the curse that had trapped her on the highway. Reluctantly, they agreed to spend the night. As darkness fell, the motel seemed to come alive with eerie whispers and phantom footsteps. Emily's unease grew, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. In the middle of the night, they were jolted awake by a blood-curdling scream. The hitchhiker was gone, and a trail of ghostly footprints led them out of the motel and into the heart of Crimson Hollow. They followed the footprints through the ghost town, their flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. The town had come alive with spectral figures, their eyes vacant and their voices a mournful chorus. The footprints led them to an old cemetery on the outskirts of town. In the center of the cemetery stood a decrepit mausoleum, its doors hanging open. Inside, they found the hitchhiker, her eyes empty and her body suspended in midair, surrounded by a swirling vortex of ghostly figures. The figures whispered tales of despair and tragedy, of souls trapped in a never-ending cycle of torment. They revealed that Crimson Hollow was a place of lost souls, a town cursed to exist in a state of perpetual twilight. Terrified and desperate to escape, Sarah, John, and Emily fled the mausoleum and raced back to their camper van. As they drove away from Crimson Hollow, the ghost town seemed to vanish into thin air, as if it had never existed. They eventually found their way back to the familiar sights of Route 66, but the memory of Crimson Hollow and the haunting hitchhiker would stay with them forever. The road trip that had begun as an adventure had become a journey into the unknown, a terrifying odyssey down the haunted highways of America. And as they continued down Route 66, they couldn't help but wonder what other horrors lay hidden in the shadows of the open road, waiting to be discovered by unsuspecting travelers.